right, hello everyone and welcome to our monthly webinar. My name is Justin Cooper and I'm a hard money lender and a full-time real estate investor. Each month we bring in some of our friends in the industry to share their expertise. This may be through a presentation, like when we're talking about self-directed IRAs or title insurance, or we may simply interview our expert friends and dive deep into how they got started, where their investing has taken them, and what they see coming both for themselves and for the industry. We may or may not record each event, so it's important for you to register and sign in early so you don't miss anything. You will also have the opportunity to ask us questions live on the webinar, and we do our best to answer each and every question. I also want to say thank you to everyone who made it out to tonight's call. We know that you're giving up some of your valuable time, so I'll do everything I can to bring you the value that you're hoping for. Tonight should be pretty easy since we're talking about, I think, a very relevant topic, fix and flips. This webinar is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial is Colorado and Minnesota's premier hard money lender. Pine focuses on the needs of Colorado and Minnesota real estate investors. We're real estate investors ourselves, so we know what it takes to get deals done. Everyone at Pine Financial is dedicated to the success of our clients. We only experience success when our clients are succeeding, so we have a habit of telling you when a deal should not be done. And really, isn't that what you want from a professional in the industry, especially someone that you trust as an advisor? You benefit from our honesty and integrity when you choose to work with Pine Financial. Now, tonight's webinar is so important because we're talking about fix and flips, specifically how I lost money on my first deal, and hopefully what you can do to not make the same mistakes. So without further ado, let's dive in. Topic tonight, 5 surefire ways to lose money on your first deal or your next deal. And hopefully we're going to talk about how to avoid those mistakes, the mistakes that I made myself. So let's take a look here. So who is Justin Cooper? Who am I? First off, I go by Coop quite often. That's a picture of me and my family, my wife Jackie. The little blonde guy in the middle there is our son Rye, and of course our new addition Penelope. We call her Penny. She is almost 4 months old. So like I mentioned, I am a full-time hard money lender with Pine Financial Group. I'm also a full-time real estate investor. I've done fix and flips, new construction, bought a non-performing note. I've used my self-directed IRA to invest, tried my hand at wholesaling, direct mail, and I own a small portfolio of rentals, some of which I still manage myself, and I'm starting to test out using property management. But before we dive into this, recently I certainly have been having some success, and tonight we're talking about one of the times I haven't had success. But going a little deeper into me, I was born and raised in New York on Long Island, came out to Colorado where I live now back in 1996. I went to Colorado State University. Although I changed majors a couple times, I graduated in 4 years and went into the business world selling plumbing supplies. Basically, I was a plumbing wholesaler selling plumbing parts and pieces to plumbers. So it was a great company. They did an amazing job of recruiting folks, and part of that recruiting was to find people that would both work hard and play hard. And sometimes that work hard part equaled me pulling 16-hour days. So there was one time, specifically after I got home at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, I was totally exhausted, but of course after a long day like that, you can't just turn off, at least I can't, and go straight to sleep. So, you know, I sat down on the couch, turned on the TV, and who did I see? Good old Carlton Sheets. So Carlton Sheets, Robert Allen, Russ Whitney, the gurus you don't necessarily hear about so much today, but certainly were back when I was getting into and involved in real estate investing. They were the ones. And the big way that they would come into your home would be through late night infomercials. So I'm sitting on the couch. I'm pretty tired after a long day, frustrated about having to work so hard. And a commercial comes on like this saying you don't have to have any cash, you don't have to have any credit, no experience, and real estate is the way. And I'm thinking, I don't have any cash. I don't have any credit. I have no experience investing in real estate. This must be perfect. I can do this. So started me on my real estate investing journey. I can't remember exactly when this was, maybe 2003, 2004. And what these did, these late night infomercials, if you're all familiar with the process here, they would drive you to the 2-hour informational session, right? Usually on a weekend, you would go there, and although they'd give you certainly a lot of information and education, it was also a big sales pitch, right? And they're pitching you on the 3-day boot camp. And then from there, from the 3-day, half of that is spent trying to pitch you on getting you into their coaching or their mentoring or maybe other weekends. And well, to be honest, I didn't have the cash to even be investing in the 3-day. So I just went to a ton of these 2-hour informational sessions, tried to learn as much as I can. And then honestly, one day Carlton Sheets comes to town and says, hey, we're not going to just sit in a classroom for 3 days. We're actually going to get on a bus and go out and see these properties. Well, now that was enough to get me off my butt. It cost $3,000. I only had $1,500 that I put onto a credit card. The other $1,500 I actually borrowed from my dad, signed a promissory note and everything for it. It wasn't just free money to me. But that was what it took to get me into a 3-day. Now, on that bus tour, the thing I was probably most excited about, we start going around seeing these beat up ugly properties, and the guys leading the tours were saying, oh, whole new kitchen, whole new bathroom, and just throwing out these numbers. And I'm sitting there thinking, I just had to borrow money to get into this thing. I certainly don't have money to be going around and doing all new kitchens and all these bathrooms and these full remodels. So I actually left it pretty frustrated, knowing I just spent all this money and time, and I probably won't be able to do anything for quite a while because I didn't have any money. Well, somewhere around that time, I met my wife. Obviously, things have worked out, but one of the big reasons I think for that is we're both very driven individuals. We both love real estate, and in that, we eventually started this kind of informal competition where we both wanted to buy a house. We both wanted to buy an ugly, beat-up house and fix it up. So what happened was, we both wound up buying a house probably within 3 months of each other. Now, I wanted to just do a straight fix and flip, and my wife wanted to get in and live in the property as she fixed it up. Well, we were also at a point in our relationship where moving in together sounded like a good idea. So we had just bought houses individually, but we moved into hers together. And this actually leads me to the first point. Do not buy your first flip when you're planning on moving in with your girlfriend, especially if she just bought a house and that house is a fixer-upper. Now, of course, I'm saying this in jest. This is not one of the 5 major ways to lose money, but it actually was point 10. No, the reason 23, whatever it was, that I actually wound up losing money. Because read between the lines on this. What am I actually saying here? I'm saying I wasn't focused, right? I'm young, I'm in love, we got this great house, and her house needs repairs. So where am I going to go spend my cold winter evenings? Probably it was actually right about this time of year. Where would I rather be? In the house with my girlfriend, sitting on the couch watching TV, or maybe, doing some tile work in her bathroom? Or in my house, which had been empty and cold all day long, and I'm the only one in there, there's no furniture. Right, I didn't want to be in that house. I wasn't motivated. So that wasn't one of the big 5, but it certainly was one of the reasons. And they're going back and looking through, hindsight being what it is, there were several little things like this that caused me, I think, to lose money. So let's take a look at this thing. This was the house. And this was, even though it's blurry, I think this was the listing photo. You can tell it was the after picture because of all that beautiful red mulch in the front of the house. Conveniently matched the color of part of the house. I did not paint the house red, but as we'll soon discuss, I certainly did not have the money to repaint that part of the house. So that red paint was there and it stayed there. But that's it. It was a nice little bungalow. Here's some interior pictures. In the top left corner, you can see some beautiful green trim. Very old, what used to be, I think, white paint. Super old original windows. The house was built in, I think, 1924. Windows were still original. Half of them didn't even open anymore. The carpet, I don't know if you can tell or not, but that is a green carpet. In the kitchen, the lower left corner, the cabinets, the upper cabinets were wood. The lower cabinets were all steel. In fact, that center piece where the sink is was all one massive steel part. I'll tell you, the scrappers, when I left this in the alley behind the house, they loved me. They probably made so much money off this huge piece of steel. Looking at the floor, the tile, we redid the tile. The bathroom, not horrible, not great. We did put in a new toilet, new tile around the surround, new paint. We kept the tub, we just kind of spruced it up and cleaned it up a little bit. So nothing crazy, right? Just a full cosmetic remodel is really all we were doing here. So how did I come up with this topic? Well, who would be okay making $8,890.31 on their first deal? If you guys want to throw in some comments there, we're using the questions section, especially for those of you who joined a little later. We'll be using the questions section, not chat or anything else if you do have any questions. But who here would be okay making $8,890.31 on their first flip? Anybody? There we go. Yeah, okay. So a few people here. Very good. Awesome. So who would not be okay making that? There's always a few people that say they don't want to make $8,000. And typically, those people are saying that it's not enough. And that's a great point. Typically, people usually want to make what? $20,000, $25,000, depending on the price point of the home, maybe even more if you're dealing in the higher price points. But for me, this is actually what happened. I lost $8,890.31. Now, I bet nobody would say that they would want to do that. Now, yeah, I gained a ton of experience on this project, enough to obviously put it into a presentation, but nobody wants to do that. I don't care how much you want to chalk it up to education, nobody should ever want to lose money. I certainly don't. But how did I come up with that? How do I know such an exact number? Well, this was the math I did. Total mortgage payments, $10,000 in mortgage payments. No, this was not a hard money loan. That's how long I held the property. Total utilities, $631. So the heating, the electric, total water sewer, $186. Total rehab, $24,281.34. Now remember this, because we're going to go back and refer to this. Total rehab, $24,000. So if we add up all of those expenses, those are all out-of-pocket expenses. Grand total, $35,000. Now, if you're familiar with a HUD settlement sheet, or at least what used to be the HUD settlement sheet on line 603, the net due to the seller, $26,000. So I left closing. When I sold it, I walked away with a check for $26,000, the largest check I had ever held in my hand. But I had $26,000 coming into my pocket. But over the course of this project, I had $35,000 go out. So because of that, I didn't even recoup all the money that I shelled out on this deal. That's the math I did. That's how I came up with that loss. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that before we start going too far? Nobody popping up with questions yet? Fair enough. Let's keep moving. So here are the 5 ways. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next hour, or maybe just a little less than that now. The 5 points, the 5 surefire ways to lose money. The ARV, the after repair value of the property. The SOW, the scope of work. What will you be doing to the property? The numbers. Is the ARV a number? Yes. Is the scope of work a number? Yes. Do we know our numbers? And do we analyze the deal? Do we analyze based on those numbers? Cash. Did you have any? Do you need any? What's the smart thing to do there? And then, of course, your team. Do you have a team? And who are they really looking out for? These are the 5 ways. After a lot of, well, at the time, sleepless nights, and afterwards, just a lot of conversations with other investors about how this deal went, this is really what I drilled it down to. These were the 5 biggest ways that I lost money. Because, yes, I screwed up, I think, every single one of these. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about 1, how I screwed them up, and then 2, hopefully what I learned and what you will do to not make the same mistake. All right, let's dive in. After repair value, ARV. 2 numbers on the screen here, $212,000 and $165,000. Now I do this presentation usually to a live audience, and I usually ask everybody, what do you think these are? It's not as easy with the webinar and people filling in the question section. Inevitably, somebody says, oh, well, that's what you bought it for and that's what you sold it for. And if so, that would be awesome. I probably would have actually made money if this was it. In reality, what it was, $212,000 is what I thought the after repair value was, and $165,000 is what I actually sold it for. Now, I know y'all have calculators there, either your cell phone or you're sitting at home on a computer and you can pull up a calculator because every computer and cell phone has one. But it's pretty easy math, I would hope. That's a difference of about $50,000. $50,000 on a ballpark $200,000 property, that is a huge, huge mistake. If I hadn't messed this up, if I had been accurate, that would have cured everything. This one mistake topped everything else. If I had gotten this right, all the other mistakes would have, altogether, I still would have made money on this. And we're going to go through exactly what those other mistakes were and how it looks, but $50,000 mistake up front, that's what absolutely killed this deal. So what is ARV? ARV is the after repair value. It's what will the house be worth after it's all fixed up and beautiful? What will you sell the property for? So why is it important? Well, how do we know what we should buy it for if we don't know what we can sell it for? Everything is based upon the after repair value. MAO, maximum allowable offer. This is a formula we're going to talk about when we're talking about running the numbers. MAOs are typically based on the after repair value. HML stands for hard money lender. Now, most, especially Pine Financial, our loans are based on the after repair value. The 70% rule. This is basically an investing rule. It says that you want your costs to be equal to or less than 70% of the after repair value. Some people use the 65% rule. It's the same thing, just a little bit lower. You want your costs to be equal to or less than a percentage of the after repair value. All of these different ways of analyzing a deal, of getting loans, are based on the after repair value. It is the most important number when it comes to a fix and flip. Okay, Justin, the after repair value is important, but what's it based on? Well, it's based on sold comps. A comp would be a comparable property. And I specify sold because sold is the one we're looking for. Sold comps tell us what somebody actually paid for the property. I'm not looking at listings. I'm not looking at under contracts. What did the property actually sell for? Because even though I sold that property for $165,000, I could have listed it for $212,000, right? So if somebody else was trying to pull that property as a comp, they would have been off by $50,000, right? What if I listed it at $212,000 and somebody lowballed me and offered me $165,000 and it went under contract and I accepted that offer? The listing doesn't say what it went under contract for, simply that it's under contract. So now you know it went under contract, you can see that, but all you know is it was listed at $212,000. You don't know what that offer actually was. But once the property sells, now we know that price, and that's why we only use sold comparable properties when we're building our after repair value. Now, of course, we want to look at square footage. Typically, we want to look at something within 20% of the house we're looking to buy. So if we buy a house that's 1,000 square feet, the comparable properties would be anywhere as small as 800 all the way up to 1,200 square feet. So you're looking in that 20% plus or minus range. Bedrooms and bathrooms, of course that's important, right? Now, if you ask an appraiser, they may not make adjustments dollar-wise based on the number of bedrooms, or the bathrooms may be small adjustments. The bedrooms are usually accounted for in the square footage adjustment if they're going to make adjustments, but it's important to know because a 2-bed, 1-bath, even if they're both 1,200 square feet, may not be worth the same as a 4-bed, 3-bath, 1,200 square foot home. So it's certainly important to understand the bedrooms and bathrooms, get as close as possible. Location. What's the 3 most important things in real estate? Location, 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 right? So if we look on this map over on the right here, I don't know how well you can see it, but we generally want all the comps to be within the same neighborhood. So if you look real quick at this, now this is a snapshot of Denver. Some folks here might recognize this, but for others, it hopefully is actually going to be pretty easy to get an idea of it. And that's why this can translate into neighborhoods you may not be familiar with. Look at that huge park on the right-hand side. Is it safe to say the road that runs along it is probably a pretty major street? I think so. You know, just shooting from the hip, I'd say that's probably a pretty major road. Okay, so maybe that's a major road would be a border to a neighborhood. What about in the top left? You see those streets at a diagonal, and then all of a sudden they turn and going straight left, right? I bet you that road where they all meet and adjust from being on a diagonal to left and right, that's probably another major road. Okay, so now we have the left and right borders of the neighborhood, What about the road that runs along the south end of the park? Again, probably a pretty major road. So based on that, we have the three, and then across the top, I don't know if you could see those three roads that we just talked about, they look to be a little more yellow than the rest of the roads. And across the top of the map is another road that looks yellow, probably the top of the neighborhood. So now we have our little grid, our little square for the neighborhood. And look at this one. This was from an appraisal. It looks like all of those properties are within that neighborhood. So that's good. Those are comps in the neighborhood. So the location is probably accurate here. Now we want to be looking at condition. What is the condition of the home? Now you're buying maybe an REO, a bank-owned property, but we're going to be selling a beautiful, all-new, fixed-up fix and flip, right? So those are the types of properties we want to be looking for. We don't want to see one that's been gently used or lived in, or one that says it's a handyman special. We want to see the comments on these properties saying all new, new kitchen, new roof, new whatever, move-in special. Your dream home. Those are the types of things we're looking for, because that's the type of product that we want to provide to the market. We want our listing to be saying those same things. So we want to make sure the condition is the same. The age. I think I said that this property was built in 1924. Now, it doesn't have to all be built in 1924. For this property, you could probably have a comp all the way up to maybe the 40s without any kind of adjustment. But if you're looking at a property that was built in 2000 and comparing that to a property built in 1924, that's probably no longer comparable, is it? So pay attention to age, but as you notice, it's pretty low on the list here, right? It's not as important. Style, for some reason I put that last, but it's also probably one of the more important ones. If you're buying a ranch house, you want your comparable properties to be ranches. If you're buying a tri-level, you want your comps to be tri-levels, etc., etc. If you're buying a tri-level, you could use a ranch as a comp if there are no other tri-levels. But which is more desirable? Which do people want? Where would somebody want to live? In a tri-level, where you're climbing up and down stairs to do everything, or in a ranch house where you walk straight in the front door and everything is on the same level? There's going to be a difference in price for that. So if you're pulling those numbers, you'll want to make some sort of adjustment for that. And this last item, look down. Are there yellow stripes on the road? Yeah, that's not good. Ask me how I know. Actually, you don't have to ask me. I'll tell you. There is an adjustment. Yellow stripes are only on busy roads. Who wants to live on a busy road? Well, somebody probably does, but they're probably not willing to pay the same as someone who lives on a more quiet street. So there's going to be an adjustment. So how do we come up with this after repair value? We know what kind of comps we should be looking for, but how do we actually come up with a number? Well, ideally, you get an after repair value appraisal. Have a third-party professional value the home. Now, if you can't do that, if you don't have the time or the money to get an appraisal, then that's okay. That would probably be the best, I would say. Also, an as repaired appraisal is not something every appraiser does or understands or is willing to do. Most appraisers do as is appraisals. So an as repaired, they're trying to get out their crystal ball and predict the future. So not everybody's comfortable doing it. What's another way? What if we were to do a CMA, the CMA comparative market analysis? Where do we get those? From real estate agents. Now, I say a solid CMA because not all CMAs are the same. So what I'm looking for when I say a solid CMA, I'm talking about 3 to 5 comparable properties that truly are comparable. Bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, location, right? The busy street or not busy street. We're looking for those things. And we're looking for the similar quality. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want to be getting a CMA that's 40 pages long, that's everything out there on the market, right? I just want what my agent, my professional on my team thinks are probably the 3 to 5 best properties. And then I want to be able to talk to them and read the broker comments, look at all the pictures. Why do they think that this really is the best one? And then I can help determine, well, based on these pictures and what they're saying, my property will be the same. So that's how I know that these are good comparable properties. Look on a map. You got to understand where are these properties. Look on this one up here. This property in the lower right corner, right close to that park, is probably going to be worth a little bit more, I would think, than the subject property, the one highlighted in red. Don't you want to live closer to a park? Probably, maybe, I don't know exactly, but I would think that that one might be worth a little bit more. So look on a map. Where are the properties? Where are the comps? Understand what else is going on, not just in the comps, but what's going on around your property. Are there commercial buildings? Are there commercial districts? Is there going to be just a lot of foot traffic because there's restaurants and bars and stuff over there? Is there going to be a lot of trucks coming in and out because it's more maybe industrial? What if you're close to a school or you're across the street from a school? That might be a mixed blessing. Are you across the street from the park side, from the fields? Maybe that's a massive backyard you have access to, which could be great. Or what if you're across the street from the other side of the school, the front where the parking lot is, where you're going to have kids coming and going and cars and trucks and buses and everybody dropping things off twice a day? Which side of the school is better? Maybe it's a bonus to your property on one side and it's a detriment to the property on the other. Understand what's going on around your property, not just right there on the same block, but maybe at the end of the street or 2-3 blocks over. Drive the property if you can, and don't just drive straight in and straight out however Google Maps tells you to get there. Spend some time, drive around the neighborhood, get to know how people can get in, get out, what's around it, and really understand what's going on with this property. Read the broker comments. Understand what the quality level of these properties are. We want to be using properties that are of the same quality as what we're going to put out. So this is a picture of a grid from an appraisal. So kind of showing you the different things that appraisers will look at and possibly make adjustments on. So you'll see in this case, the top item is sales price. So in this case, the person was buying the property for 120, and the comps were all in the 500s. All right, well, why is that? In this case, it was actually a new construction deal. If you look down in the middle, actual age, it says new. This was going to be a new construction project. The second line is the sales price per square foot. Now, I would almost advise you to take that and just throw that right out the window, because when it comes to making adjustments and looking at things, we don't use a price per square foot, right? If your property is 1,000 square feet and the comp is 1,200 square feet, in this case, they're saying it's worth $216, $240, $275 a foot. You don't just take that 200 square feet, multiply it by whatever that price per square footage is to come up with the difference, right? That's not exactly how it works. So please be very careful when it comes to price per square foot. As you look down, you'll see that the appraiser actually made some different adjustments. Remember I mentioned the age. Looking all the way over on the property on the right, that property was 7 years old, only 7 years old. Sounds pretty new, but because the other properties were actually brand new, there's an adjustment of $10,000 for that. Look down a little further and you see bedrooms, bathrooms, and the square footage. The gross living square footage, this is above grade, and then there's the basement and the finished, okay? There are different sections because they are adjusted differently. Above ground square footage is worth a lot more than below ground square footage. Right? Your basement square foot is worth less than the above ground. And on top of that, there's a difference generally in the basements between finished and unfinished. There's usually different adjustments for that. Now, you don't have to know exactly how an appraiser will make the exact adjustments, but you need to understand that this is the way properties will be appraised, especially because on the back end, your back end buyer is probably going to be getting an appraisal. So you need to be aware of how appraisers look at these things. If you're not familiar at all with appraisers or appraisals, go back. If you've ever bought a house, even your primary residence, go back and find that appraisal and read through it and see all the different comments and all the different adjustments. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming and super nitty-gritty, but sometimes you may have some real epiphanies and maybe pretty eye-opening as to what they're looking for. So how did I screw up? Well, this was my CMA. Now, I said I'm not a big fan of having 40 different properties, but this was literally all I had. I didn't have any other paperwork to look at. Just these 3 lines. So we see it's all in the same zip code, so that's pretty good. And if you're familiar with Denver, you know those streets are actually pretty close, and looking at the house numbers, they're all probably within a block or 2 of each other, so that's good. Look at the prices, 206, 220, 211. Now for those with calculators, add those 3 up, divide by 3, what does it come to? Roughly 212,000. Does that sound anywhere remotely close to what an appraiser does? Did I pay attention to anything else? or did I simply add them up and divide by 3? That was all I did. That is not the right way to do it. Several red flags jumping out at me. Now, today, being more educated, being a more savvy investor, several red flags jump out at me at this. That first property on Cook is a 2-bed, 1-bath. The third property on Steele is a 4-bed, 2-bath. Sounds like it's twice the size. Maybe those aren't good comps. Look at the square footage for the Cook Street. Total square footage, 850, and above ground square footage, 850. So what does that tell me? It means it's probably a ranch with no basement, right? All the square footage is on one floor. The second property on St. Paul is a 3-bed, 1-bath, maybe comparable, but it's only 624 square feet above ground, so it's smaller. Is it within that 20%? It's close. But if the total square footage is 1,248, that means it has a full finished basement, right? Now, I did say that basement square footage is adjusted dollar-wise differently, but if I'm looking at a house and it has a full finished basement, it's certainly more marketable. It's going to be worth more because there is more square footage, but just the marketability. Somebody's going to want to have that extra square footage. Okay, so maybe this is, maybe it's not a good comp. The third property on Steele, 1,000 square feet above, 2,000 square feet total. So it's way bigger on the main floor, and it has a full finished basement. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath. This one may not even be a good comp. Now, my property was on Steele Street, so maybe there's something to this. Maybe I should look a little closer. But look at, what does this tell us here? Cook Street, 206, St. Paul, 220. So more square footage because of the basement, and it's worth a lot more, sold for a lot more. But Steele Street, the largest property, sold for the middle number. Now, why would that be? Well, what did I tell you about Steele Street? It's a busy street. There's yellow lines on the road. Could that have been because there was an adjustment? The biggest house did not sell for the most dollars. Could it have been because of the busy street? I don't know. Possibly. Should this have been another red flag for me? Absolutely. Should I have dug deeper and asked questions? Yes, I should have. Did I? No. So, looking at this, I hope you all can see how much I screwed up. I probably could have went into a lot more detail as to specifically what I did wrong, but this is what I was looking at. This is what I was working with as an ARV, and I think these are all the different ways that I should have done it better. To be honest, we teach a full 2-hour class just on determining the after repair value. So I know I worked through it in probably 15, 20 minutes, but working on the after repair value is probably equal parts science and art, right? There is no just one exact way to do it. And unfortunately, that's what makes it so difficult. But as real estate investors, if we can do it right, this is how we can make a lot of money. $50,000. That was how much I screwed this up. Again, if I had gotten this right, or even just a little bit better, I could have been offering a different price. I could have walked away from the deal. If I had gotten it right, I would have made money. Even if everything else got screwed up, I still would have made money on this deal. I would have went from losing $9,000 to making $40,000. After repair value, I think, is super important. If you have any questions, feel free and give me a call, shoot me an email. We do these ARV classes from time to time. We've done it on the webinar. We do them live in Colorado and in Minnesota. Keep your eye out for them. $50,000. Oh, hurts just saying it. Still. All right, so I know we're kind of going to be pressed for time. I tried building in some times for questions, but there's a lot to cover, and we only have about 25 minutes left. So if you've got a question on the after repair value, throw it at me real quick. Otherwise, definitely feel free to just save them to the end, and I'll get through as many as we possibly can. I'll stay on the line well after the end time if there's still questions. If you need to jump off, of course, you're more than welcome to, but if you can stay on the line, I'm happy to answer all the questions. So, scope of work, the SOW. What is a scope of work? Well, I mean, at a basic level, it's what the house needs. So write it down. but not just what does the house need. And I mean, really, you saw me start going through the scope of work just from those pictures. Well, it needs paint. It needs the trim to be painted. We need new windows, right? We need new carpet or new flooring. It needs new cabinets. It needs new tile in the kitchen, right? It was pretty easy to start building that scope of work simply from the pictures. And it could be that easy as you walk through the property. Bring a sheet of paper and just as you're walking from room to room, as you walk around the exterior of the home, just start writing down what it needs. You'll have comparable properties, or somehow at some point you'll be getting comparable properties. Look at those pictures. Compare the picture of the comp, the fixed up beautiful house, to where yours is at. What needs to change on my house to get it to be worth that comparable property? Write those things down. But don't just write down what it needs, write down what it would cost to do it. Now that might seem obvious to some, but I make it a point here because that was something I didn't do. I absolutely did not include the costs. Now this may seem like a funny little quote, it may seem like an obvious quote. You cannot go over budget if you don't have one to begin with, right? Is that a fair statement? Yeah. Did those words literally leave my mouth when I was talking to my dad, my private lender, the one who sponsored me to go through that training, when he stopped by my first flip? Oh, Justin, look at this house here. All right. So what's your budget? Well, Dad, I figured you can't go over budget if you don't have one to begin with. I thought it was pretty funny. He did not. I would not recommend telling your private lender that you don't have a budget. So here's an example of a pretty basic scope of work. You'll see on the right-hand side, this is what we use at Pine Financial Group. It says draw 2, draw 3. It says that because the first draw actually comes at closing, but that's how, when you're working with a lender, a hard money lender who lends you the repair money, they may give you the repaired money over a series of draws. But don't worry about that part. Look at the part on the left. It's pretty basic, just broken out by kitchen. What has to happen in a kitchen, or what could happen in a kitchen? Well, you may replace cabinets, countertops, flooring, paint, backsplash, appliances, the sink, the faucet, the garbage disposal, maybe light fixtures, right? In the living room, what can happen in there? Paint, flooring, doors, trim. There's only so many things in a living room that could really get done. Maybe some lighting in there. And then next to it is the estimate. It doesn't have to be down to the perfect penny. Look at those numbers. They're super round and generic numbers, but they get us close enough. You do enough of this through the house, now you have some semblance of a budget. You could do a couple things with that budget. You could go out and buy the material yourself. You know how much things might cost. You could give this to a contractor or several of them and say, this is what I want done in this property. Put a number to it. Tell me if I'm right, or tell me what you think should happen on this. And now you're getting not just what needs to be done, but numbers to it. Lots of different ways, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. It could literally be a super easy Excel spreadsheet. I've put together scopes of work literally on the back of napkins, small little sheets of paper I just grabbed as I ran out the door to look at a property. It doesn't have to be fancy. $10,000. Why do you think I have this on the screen? Well, I'd like to say $10,000 was my budget, but it wasn't. $10,000 is what I had in the bank. So on that same conversation where I was telling my dad, well, you can't go over budget if you don't have one, I absolutely recall telling him that when he asked how much I was going to spend, I said, $10,000, Dad, because I don't have 11 to spend on it. Again, huge eye roll. I could see him getting nervous in his $1,500 investment in me. That is what I had in the bank, so therefore that was all I could have spent. Now this was the scope of work I put together. Kind of does what I said, right? Pull the carpets, finish the floors, paint. I wrote down what the house needs. I thought it was getting super fancy because I even put pictures in there, right? Now why would I need pictures in my scope of work? Shouldn't I be at the property doing the work or supervising the work? Shouldn't I know because I'm in the property every day, every week, several times throughout the process? I put all this on there because I put this scope of work together while sitting on the couch of my girlfriend's house during those cold winter months when I was not at the property doing any work. I didn't put this together before I bought the property. I didn't put this together, certainly not without any prices. You see there's no prices in there anywhere. I put this together after I'd already bought the property. Huge mistake. So the numbers. We talked about the after repair value. We talked about the scope of work. We talked about how they're both numbers real quickly on how to build those numbers. Ignorance is not bliss. I kind of thought it was, or maybe I was just, I don't know, hoping ignorance would be bliss. If I had an accurate after repair value and I had any kind of scope of work, I would have known not to offer what I did. So we mentioned an MAO, maximum allowable offer. This is one that we have on our website, pinefinancialgroup.com. I think it's under a tab called resources, and it's the MAO sheet. And this one, as you'll read across the top, max loan is the after repair value, put that in, times 70%. That's the 70% rule right there. So you do that, what's 70% of the after repair value? We can calculate the closing costs. I've got that 4% in there because Pine Financial generally charges 4 points, and 1 point is 1% of the loan amount, plus $1,500. That's the miscellaneous closing costs. Title fees, recording fees, insurance. Now, depending on the price point, it may be a little higher, but we can pretty easily calculate the closing costs, and then we jump down to the lower part. The max loan, 70% of the after repair value, minus the repairs, minus the closing costs, equals the maximum allowable offer. In this case, especially with Pine Financial, if you wanted a no money down deal, which we can do, you would simply do all this. That will tell you what you should offer on the property, and as long as all the other numbers add up, it could be a no money down deal. If anything, you're at least complying to that 70% rule. Here's another way to run the numbers. This one we call the profit method, because you'll see the first one that we'll subtract out is the profit. So this one is all based on the 70% rule. We're talking percentages here, okay? Now that other 30% here is where your profit is, okay? Not all 30% probably, but it's in that 30%. Down here, we're actually penciling out all of the numbers. In the 70% one, we're making assumptions. We're assuming your profit is in there. We're assuming the holding costs and the closing costs to sell are in that 30%. In this one, where we're penciling it all out, we literally pencil it all out. We have the profit. We have the closing cost to purchase, which we already talked about. We know the repair budget because we should have put together a scope of work. The holding costs, you jump up to that big box on the side there. That's how we can calculate the holding costs. Concessions, realtor fees, the CC, those are closing costs when we're selling. So we pencil in all these things, subtract them all out from that after repair value, and that would tell us what we should offer. Surprisingly, and if you actually pencil all this stuff out, usually the two methods come out to be pretty similar. Now, using the 70% one, you can get through it pretty quick. But sometimes people like to actually see all these numbers and pencil everything out, make sure it's all going to work. So that's okay. That's what the second one is for. You can absolutely pencil all of that stuff out. So what if I had penciled it out? Did I pencil it out? If I did, what would it say? Let's take a look. I thought the after repair value was $212,000. 70% of that would be $148,400. So what are the closing costs? If I had gotten a hard money loan, I hadn't. I got a conventional loan. But if I had and I went with Pine Financial, what would that look like? Closing costs of about $7,500. So what should I have offered on the property? The maximum loan, 70%, $148,400 minus $10,000 in repairs, right? Because that's what I had to spend, so it couldn't be any more. Minus the closing costs, would say a maximum offer of $130,000. I think I actually bought this property for $128,000. Pretty darn close. Is it because I got lucky? Is it because I actually penciled it out? To be honest, I don't remember. But if I had used this exact math, what were the huge flaws? The after repair value was way off and the repairs were way off. Well, let's go back and see. Let's use the same analysis if I had accurate numbers. 165,000 ARV. 70% of that would have been 115,500. Now right there should be a huge flag because my purchase price, 128, was more than 70% of the after repair value. That right there should be a big red flag because what's that 70% rule? We want our purchase and repairs to be equal to or less than 70%. Less than, not more. And mine was definitely more. Huge red flag. Closing costs, if I had gone through with this, $6,000. So the max loan, $115,500, 70% of the after repair value. Repairs, right? This was the accurate number, $24,000. Closing costs of $6,000. If I had accurate numbers, I should have offered $85,000. I should have offered $85,000. What did I offer? $128,000. What's the difference there? $128,000, $130,000? $45,000. Isn't that the same difference, basically, that I screwed up on the ARV? You see how that change happened there, and it almost directly correlates? Again, if I hadn't screwed up that after repair value, everything else may have been okay. So what's the minimum we want to make on a flip, right? That second way to analyze it, the first question we ask is, what do we want to make in profit? Typically, we want to make $20,000, $25,000. This is going to take 6 months of our life, maybe even longer, potentially. We have to get a loan. We're signing on debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe. Or if not, we're signing up hundreds of thousands of our personal cash in this deal, right? We want to make sure that we get a good, solid return on this. When should we run the numbers? Before we buy the house. Why? So, Justin, you know what to buy the house at. If you had the right numbers and you ran those numbers, you would have known not to pay $128,000. Yes, lesson learned. Cash. Now, I kind of mentioned briefly, Pine Financial Group's loan, we will lend up to 70% of the after repair value. And if all of your costs, purchase, repairs, and closing costs, are equal to or less than that 70%, we can cover it, and it would be no money down. So at closing, you would have no money out of pocket. We would literally fund all of the purchase price, no down payment there. We'd cover all the repairs, so you don't have to have any repairs out of pocket, and the closing costs. You would actually walk away with a check because we fund the first draw at closing. But Pine Financial wasn't founded until 2008. I did this deal in 2007, which if anybody is familiar, you know that 2007, when I bought it and I sold it in 2008, was maybe not the best time for a first-time newbie with zero experience to be doing their first deal. But in 2007, you could get something like I did, a 100% conventional loan. So what is that? Well, I borrowed the full purchase price, all $128,000. Now, there was no repair money, and there was some closing costs, but actually, with that offer, we negotiated some concessions where the seller paid for my closing costs, and I actually wound up getting a check for $500 at closing. I did walk away with $500, half of my earnest money. I think I put down $1,000 in earnest money, and I walked away with a check for $500, which sounded awesome. I was beyond excited. But regardless of whether you get a hard money loan from someone like Pine where you have zero out of pocket at closing, or back in the day when I got a 100% conventional loan, you still need to have money, right? In my case, there was no repair money. Nobody lent me money, so I had to have money for that. When you get a loan from a hard money lender, they may give you the repair money, but they only have so much. Maybe you have to float some of the contractors before you get a draw from your lender. Or maybe you want to prepay because you found a super great deal on cabinets, but you're not going to install them for 2 months. So you need to buy those now and have money for that. Maybe your contractor skips town and it takes 50% of the repair money that you gave them up front. And now you need money to keep the project moving with a different contractor, or there's monthly payments, or whatever it is. You need to have money. Even if you can borrow all the money you think you would need, there's still going to be unknowns, and you need to be prepared for those unknowns. What if just you get hit by a bus and now there's medical bills? You have to have some money. You remember how I came up with that first scope of work? $10,000. That was all the money I had in the bank. So what happened if my budget was over $10,000? Well, I did go over budget. It was $24,000. So how did I handle it? What about the mortgage payments? I had $10,000 just in mortgage payments. And in the other holding expenses, about $1,000. Yeah, unfortunately, it does take money to make money. It doesn't have to be huge sums of money, but you can't just have zero either. Now, how do you get that? Well, yeah, it could be private money, could be a partner, right? There's lots of different ways. For me, I did have a private money source, in a way. It wasn't my dad. Well, I think it was pretty obvious that he was not going to give me more money after all the conversations I was having with him about how I had zero budget. So how did I get through this deal? Well, it turns out I had a step grandmother that passed away. The timing could not have been better. And I say that kind of in jest, but there was zero planning behind this. When my grandfather passed away, she, in a way, screwed over my family, took all his money, and wrote all of us out of his will. None of us, the grandkids, my mom, nobody got any money when my grandfather passed away. She took it all and ran. So huge amount of bad blood. Nobody had even heard from this woman for 10, 15 years. And it just so happened that the personal representative reached out to me while I was in the middle of the deal and said, hey, Carol passed away. She left you some money in her will. For a while, I couldn't even remember who this person was. It took me a long time to remember. Finally, it clicked, and really, I didn't care. Somebody left me money, which was great. Because who remembers back in the day, 2007, 2008, 2009, all those deals that were out there that looked like somebody started doing rehab or started fixing up some stuff, but then there it was as a bank-owned property on the market for sale? I was this close to having that be me. I didn't have the money. There was no way for me to get through this project. Maybe I could have went to my dad. Maybe I could have reached out to some other folks. But this is how I got through it. And to be honest, I was pretty close to losing the property. If I were you, I would not plan on your step-grandmother passing away mid-deal and lending you and giving you a bunch of money. So make sure, whatever way it is, you are prepared for those unknowns, those what-ifs, or even just the known expenses of mortgage payments, that you have these things budgeted and money set aside for it. Super important. Now, we're starting to wind down, having the right team in place. So where do we get our after repair value? Well, it could be from a real estate agent, right? We need to have agents on our team, whether it's for bringing us the deals or listing it on the back end. We got to have real estate agents on our team. Maybe we have an appraiser on our team. What about the scope of work and the costs? Maybe we're just super knowledgeable. Maybe we have a handyman. Maybe we have a full GC that works with us. What about the cash or the loan? Do we have private lenders? Do we have a mortgage lender? Do we have a hard money lender on our team? Right? I don't know, but we should. We absolutely need to. All these gurus always talk about building your power team. Yeah, it's absolutely true. You need to have these people. Maybe they're CPAs and attorneys, right? There's a lot of other people we could or maybe even should have on our team. But maybe what's more important, not just having someone on your team, but having them have our best interest in mind. So why do I say that? Why is this one of the 5 big ways? Having a team, of course we know we need these people. Well, do you remember my CMA? Do you remember how I came up with the after repair value? This was given to me by my real estate agent. Now, I hadn't talked to my real estate agent basically after I bought the house. Not a peep. I think she actually moved to a different state. So I think it's safe for me to talk about her now. But if you look at it, how many real estate agents are there out there? Lots. And if you dig deeper, how many deals does a typical real estate agent close? Very few. Now there's some top performers that are killing it, but there's some people that are very part-time, some that only close one deal a year, and then there's others that are actually full-time real estate agents but are struggling to get by. Maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck like some of us. Well, if that's the case, and they're living paycheck to paycheck and they get their client under contract, maybe they know that that's going to be their paycheck and they don't want to see that disappear. So maybe they don't do a good job of pulling the comps, of helping them confirm that value. I don't know. I'm willing to bet anybody on this call is probably not that type of agent, because if anything, you're sitting here listening to my story, or you just have more experience. You have somehow found your way to this webinar. So I bet you're not in that lower percentile of real estate agents that unfortunately I think I was working with. I don't know if that was true or not. I don't know if she was paycheck to paycheck, but I know I lost money, and I know I was pretty bitter for a while there, and I never heard from her again. So that's all I can assume. Scope of work, contractors. Now, contractors, even if you're on the call with us here, you know who you are, and you know that there's risks in contractors. I would say you got to always be looking for your next contractor. Even if you got an amazing one, unfortunately, it's kind of the nature of the business. Something happens and they'll go away. Something's going to happen. Now, mortgage broker, I told you that I got a 100% loan, right? So again, kind of looking back, and this one was a lot easier for me to see. I think my mortgage broker was really only concerned with two things. One, would I be approved? And of course, that's every mortgage broker, mortgage lender's concern, right? They want to make sure that you can get your loan done, right? They want to be able to help you in that regard. But the second thing really threw me off, and it took me a long time to remember this and to put it together, but I remember sitting at the closing table. I was buying my first property. I'd never owned a house before. It was my first investment, my first fix and flip. I was getting $500 back at closing. This was phenomenal. I could not have been happier. And I remember sitting at the closing table and my mortgage broker looking at me and say, "Hey, Justin, can you do me a favor?" "Of course, whatever you want. Look at I'm the happiest guy in the world right now. Whatever you need. Justin, can you not sell the property for 4 months? Because if you do, I'm going to lose my commission." So of course, yeah, absolutely. 4 months, no problem. That's great. It's winter time. Yeah, sure. So I agreed to that. And in the back of my head, what did I just do? I did not make this a priority anymore, right? Time was not of the essence. I didn't want to screw over my mortgage lender. He helped me out. So I got to wait 4 months. Zero priority for my house. And whose best interest were they looking out for in that sentence? Did that have anything to do with my best interests? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was all about them. Clearly, if you know anything about fix and flips, time is absolutely of the essence. You need to be moving right away. I've got clients who have scheduled it down so well that right after they leave closing, the dumpster's literally being delivered in the driveway. They're moving straight to Home Depot, picking up new locks, changing them out, and they're doing demo the same day they're buying it. But for me, I had zero. This was zero priority on my list. We have to be our own biggest advocates. Just because we think we have someone who's going to be doing these things for us, we have to be double checking, right? What's that famous phrase, trust but verify? Absolutely need to be doing that. So we are about, holy cow, I think we got 1 minute. Couldn't have timed it a little bit better. So in conclusion there, if you want to lose money, we know what to do. Ignore the after repair value. Don't get good comps. Ignore a scope work. Don't even put one together. Don't analyze the deal. Or if you do, obviously do it on bad numbers. Don't have any money and do it all yourself. But if you want to make money, have good comps. Understand a solid after repair value. Put together a scope of work with costs. I know that sounds obvious, but for me it wasn't, and so for maybe other people it's not either, and that's why I say it. Make sure you include the costs. Run the numbers, crunch them, run them this way and that way. Use a pen when you fill out those forms. A pencil you can erase and fine tune. Use a pen. Have a financial cushion, whether that's your own cushion, a private lender's, a partner's, whatever it is. Make sure that you have some money set aside to handle the unknown. And have the right team around you, a team that will have your best interest in place. Because if they make sure your best interests are handled, then they will still get paid. Everybody will do a good deal and everybody will get paid. So with that, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being on the call and listening for so long. Please dive in. Let's have some questions. I'm here as long as you need, but if you do need to jump off the call, I totally understand. Appreciate you coming out tonight. And if there's anything I can do, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. All right, so let's look at some questions here. So where do I need to go to learn more about after repair value? Well, like I said, keep your eye out for Pine Financial groups. We are doing classes all the time on a variety of topics. Obviously, this is one, after repair value, something strictly on hard money lending and how does it work. We do the after repair value. We do lots of different classes, so keep your eye out for that. But also just get out there. Look at Zillow. I wouldn't say use Zillow's estimate, but look at it. They have comps there. Look at different properties. Go to open houses. See what different properties are going for. Maybe try and figure out why is this property, if there's a bunch of open houses, what are they going for and why and how? Check that out. What else? So here's a question. They're concerned about refinancing out of a hard money loan. Well, for us, if you want to buy a property, us being Pine Financial Group, if you want to buy a property, fix it up, and then refinance it and hold it as a rental, if that's the game plan going into the deal, one of our due diligence points is to make sure that you're pre-approved for that refinance. Now, of course, in the scope of, your 30, 60, 3 months, 6 months, however long you're holding the properties, things could change, right? And that pre-approval may no longer be good, but we'll do as much as we can up front to make sure that you're set up to succeed when the repairs are done and you're refinancing. So if that's something you can do before you buy the property, absolutely do it. Make sure you're pre-approved for that refinance and talk to them. If not, what do you need to do to get pre-approved? All right, I'll see another one here. Yeah, so here's somebody saying that they actually worked with a coach that says take similar properties and then make the adjustment based on a price per square foot. I think that's too generic. I wouldn't do that. I don't do that. Be very careful doing that. Um, Everybody has their own way of doing it, and maybe the fine tuning of the price per square foot that they do is different, but I mean, I specifically said don't do that. I would be very careful if you are looking at that. Let's see here. So here's a question about jumping way back to one of the first slides about the holding costs. Yeah, so the mortgage payments was strictly the mortgage payments. So it was my first property. I probably didn't have the best credit back then, and it was a 100% loan. And that $10,000 in mortgage payments was literally $10,000 to the mortgage company. Yeah. Let's see. So do you fund for first-time fixer-uppers or do you require previous experience? Yeah, so we will lend on first-time deals for somebody. We're willing to take that risk with you if it's your first project, but we want to make sure that if it is your first project, that you have somebody on your team with experience. We want to be on that team, obviously, as a lender, but I want somebody else there who can help you and be there to answer questions throughout the whole project. Typically a local mentor or a coach, and I specify local because these national folks, they don't know specifically what's going on in Denver, in the Twin Cities, in the neighborhood you're in. So have somebody local, or you don't have to have a coach or mentor. You could just be working with an experienced real estate agent, somebody who's done deals themselves or has other investor clients, somebody who understands the nuances of investing, not just buying a primary residence. What else do we have here? Lots of questions coming in. Thank you. So let's see here. Oh, lots of questions. Hold on here. Let's see what else we can do. Is it being recorded? I hope so. I'll find out when we all hang up if it worked well. Is there a reserve fund requirement and how much? So this is for Pine Financial's loan. Yes, there is. We have a reserve requirement of 7.5% of the loan amount. And we want to make sure that's in the bank, checking savings accounts. We could possibly use HELOCs or lines of credit. If you're wondering about that, give me a call and shoot me an email and let's talk about your situation. But yeah, I want to make sure you have 7.5% of the loan amount, and I want to make sure you have that after any out-of-pocket closing costs. And I say that because even though our loan could be no money down, it isn't necessarily always no money down. Especially in today's market where deals are getting tighter, you may find a deal that's a good, profitable deal, but it's not no money down. Maybe your costs, purchase repairs and closing costs, comes in at 72, 73% of the loan amount. Well, it's still going to be profitable, I think, for you, and we can certainly go through and analyze that, but I can only loan 70, so you would have to bring that 2 or 3% difference. So I want to make sure you have that to bring to closing and still have the 7.5% of the loan amount. So when submitting a scope of work, should before pictures be submitted to you? No, not necessarily. One of the things that we'll do before closing at Pine Financial is we'll walk the property before closing so that we can verify the scope of work makes sense. We'll also, because there'll be a draw process based on what has been completed on the property, we'll need to get a baseline of the property as well. So we'll walk with the property before closing. We don't charge anything to do it. And that's when we'll actually get a good idea of, is the scope of work accurate? Did you miss something? Is something undervalued? Different things like that. So does Pine Financial loan countrywide? Unfortunately not. We are in Colorado. We're up and down the Front Range from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs. And we're in Minnesota, specifically in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area. We are not nationwide. It's part of the big master plan, but that big master plan is not going to come through in the next 12 months. So right now we're just in Colorado and Minnesota. So here's maybe a specific IRS question that I don't think I can answer. You mentioned buying the materials. How do you get around having the contractor possibly being an employee if you're buying the materials from an IRS perspective? That's a great question. I have no idea. And that goes back to point 5, having a good team. So have a good, solid CPA who understands real estate investing, and they'll be able to better advise you on how to properly structure that. All right, here's an interesting one. I really don't want to abuse my realtor. They are busy and don't make money by creating CMAs for me. Are there realtors that will allow you to pay them for a CMA? Well, start with your agent, right? They have a vested interest in seeing you be successful and get a good deal and be profitable, because compare you being an investor, well, they should get paid twice on a fix and flip when you buy it and when you sell it, compared to them just doing a retail deal where they'll get paid once, maybe again in 7 years if somebody buys another property, but they only get paid once. A retail client, they've got to spend their weekends out driving around, looking at open houses and different properties, where they may have to put some time in to put together a CMA, but maybe that takes 30 minutes. Maybe it takes an hour. I don't know. But it's still probably way less, and they'll get paid hopefully more by working for you. So I don't know, but ask them. Have that conversation with your agent. Hey, I don't want to waste your time by CMA after CMA. Can I pay you for it? Or, are you, before you even offer to pay them, just see if they're willing to do it. Ask that question. I think that at the same time, that'll help you understand how vested they are in you. Because if they're vested in you, if they have your best interest in mind, then they want to put in the time and effort to make sure all of you get the right deal and it's successful. Because, of course, if you do have a successful fix and flip, they'll get paid twice on the one deal, and then you go back and you do it again and again, right? So have the conversation with them. So does Pine Financial do 100% loans? Yes. Purchase, repairs, and closing costs up to 70% of the after repair value. And do we do rental loans? Yes. It's the same exact loan. So you'd be looking for a property that has that is beat up, that needs some love, needs some repairs, a property where you can buy it, fix it up, and improve it, increasing the value of the property. And then in that case, again, it's still only a 9-month loan. Pine Financial's loan is 9 months long. Then you would refinance it. And it goes back to what I mentioned just a little bit ago about being pre-approved for the refinance. So yeah, we do. If you're interested, feel free and reach out. Shoot me an email, give me a call, and we can talk more about what you're specifically looking to do. So my mortgage broker always pre-approves me, but then he says it doesn't really matter. Well, yeah, so there's different types of pre-approvals. There's a pre-approval, there's a pre-qualified, right? There's different levels of it. So for us, and again, this is a whole other class, buying rentals and using hard money, where I usually team up with a mortgage broker to go over how does that look on the front end with the hard money and on the refinance. And it's a very specific person that we're looking for on that refinance, because there's several hurdles that we need to make sure that they hit. We want them to be able to lend based on the after repair value, not your purchase price. We want them to not have any seasoning, because we don't want you to have to hold it for 6 or 12 months before you can refinance it. We want you to be able to refinance it as fast as you can, typically when the repairs are done. right? Things like that. So if you need somebody or you're interested in that, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to put you in contact with who we use. Um, are you limited to how many refinances you can do? For me, no. For you, well, me personally, yes. So again, that person that we use, they're a Fannie Mae direct lender, and that's really one of the keys. Is that they're a Fannie Mae direct lender, and Fannie Mae direct guidelines allow you to have up to 10 finance properties. So here's an interesting question, probably a whole weekend's worth for an answer. Where are good places to find deals other than the MLS? So the short answer I would say would be wholesalers. Get to know wholesalers. Their job is to just be an acquisition specialist. Go out, find good deals, turn them over to you as a fix and flipper. They'll make a small little spread, but they hopefully are doing a lot of volume, so it adds up in the long run. And then do some of the things that wholesalers do. They're making offers on the MLS. So in a way, it's a way to get a second look at MLS deals. What if that wholesaler beats you by $1,000 on their offer and they mark it up $3,000? Well, now you get a second look at the same property for only $4,000 more than you offered. Maybe that's still a good deal. So I would certainly be playing the MLS game, talking to wholesalers. And wholesalers also do other things. They may be those bandit signs you see out on the side of the road. They may be doing direct mail, sending postcards and mailers to different types of hopefully potentially distressed sellers. They may be knocking on doors. They may be going to the auctions, right? These are all things that you could be doing as well. Here's an interesting question. Who is Charlotte? Well, Charlotte is our loan processor, and she's the one who actually booked the webinar. So it may have the whole time been saying that me, Justin Cooper, is Charlotte. We are different people. But if you ever call into Pine Financial, Charlotte will probably be the one answering the phone. If you're borrowing from Charlotte, you will certainly be dealing with her. She's a rock star here in our office. Do you have a list of qualified contractors? No, absolutely not. Kind of for the reason I said before. They could be a rock star contractor for me, but it might be due that by the time I refer them out, that's when they start falling on their face. And last thing I want is for me to have made that referral, and now you're stuck in a deal, or somebody walked off with money, or they're dragging their feet not getting it done. So no, I don't have a list of qualified contractors. Do you fund only detached single-family homes, or is attached okay as well? So we will fund multifamilies if you're buying the whole building. So a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, because 4 and under is still residential. 5 and above starts falling under commercial. So we stay in the residential world with 4 and under. And for us, you'd have to be buying the whole building. So not just half a duplex. You'd have to be buying both sides. We don't typically lend on condos or townhomes either. What else we got here? So somebody's asking about, do we do deals in Maryland? No, we did for a short time. We had a partner that we were working with, but unfortunately, no, we no longer are doing deals in Maryland or the DMV area. So similar question, in northern Colorado, yes, but in Cheyenne, Wyoming, no, we don't cross the border, unfortunately. There's a lot of different things that need to be set up when you're going to different states like that, a lot of different regulations and rules to be following, and unfortunately, we just don't have the manpower or skills to be doing that, even just as close as Wyoming or really across the country yet. So we'll get there, just no time frame yet. Is there a seasoning requirement to the reserves? Yes, we only ask for 1 month of statements. So we want to make sure that those reserves were in your bank for at least the term of that one statement. If they're not, if they were deposited during that one statement, then I will want to see where that came from. So does Pine Financial have a rehab specialist on staff that will give recommendations of rehab style, latest trends, cost-effective renovations, materials, recommendations, tips and tricks for rehab, etc.? Yes and no. I mean, everybody in the office does invest personally. I think that's one of the things that probably sets us apart as hard money lenders. Um, and we've funded since 2008 well over 1,000 deals right now. So we're definitely having, we're checking the pulse of the market. Um, but not somebody that would specifically come out and, give this advice or anything, but we're all very familiar with what's going on in all the different markets we lend in. So if at any time you have those questions or as you're working on your scope of work or even mid-repair, feel free to give us a call. Happy to chat about it. But at the same time, this is why we want somebody, if you are newer, somebody with experience on your team, right? Maybe an experienced real estate agent who's seeing deals day in and day out and can also speak to those. But feel free to reach out. Happy to try and help you on that. So here's one. I want to invest in properties through an LLC. Does Pine Financial lend to LLCs? Yes, we will lend to both an LLC and to an individual. All depends on what you want to do. In Minnesota, though, if the loan amount is $100,000 or less, it has to be in an entity. There's certain rules that require that and dictate that. So if it's under $100,000 in Minnesota, it would have to be an LLC. Will Pine Financial work on financing for purchase from a foreclosure auction? How would that work? If a long answer, should I contact you another day? Robert, I appreciate that. There's different types of auctions. At the public trustee action, at the actual foreclosure auction, no, we can't, because that list of properties comes out maybe 2 days before the auction, and that list is ever changing. And the property you may want to borrow or buy may not actually be up at auction. The bank may push that date out, or it may get bid up, and we've done a bunch of diligence on a property that you don't even win. So for that, we just don't have the time or manpower to be doing all the diligence in 2 days on a property you may not even get. So no. But if you're looking at auction.com or some of those auction websites, those are places where the auction may hit and you may win the auction, but then you have 30, 45 days maybe to perform on that and to actually get it closed. So in that case, yes, absolutely, because now we have time to do our diligence. Typically it takes us 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks right now because of the season to be closing deals. So something like that, absolutely we can do that. If you are looking at the foreclosure auctions, what we've found and how we've done it in the past is if you're able to pay all cash for your purchase price, you buy the property cash at the auction, then we can come in. Now we have the time to do our diligence. We'll be able to do a refinance to you, basically a cash out refinance, where potentially we can get you your purchase price back, as well as now be able to fund the repairs. So that might be something that interests you. If it is, or if it's possible, or if you just want to work through that a little bit more, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email anytime. So here's somebody, I think, just checking out our website about loan terms. Yes, typically our loans are 9 months long. There are no prepayment penalties or minimum interest due. I mean, if you buy our house today and then somehow magically you can refinance it tomorrow, that's great. There would be 1 day of accrued interest, and that would be it. Here's an interesting one. Credit scores. What do we look at on credit scores? To be honest, we don't really look at credit scores. We are looking at the credit report because we do look at your credit, but we're more report driven than score driven. We've definitely made loans to people in the 500s. But what I'm looking for are tax liens, judgments, mortgage lates, things like that. Tax liens and judgments, things that could attach to the property, put us all at risk. Mortgage lates, we're about to create a mortgage payment. So we want to make sure you're current on your bills and paying those things. I'm also looking at what is your monthly debt load. I don't want to set you up to fail. We take a very common sense approach to our underwriting, and one of the big things is we don't want to set you up to fail. I look at your income, I look at your monthly debt load, and I look at the new deal and what that monthly payment is, and of course how liquid you are, and I don't want to set you up to fail. So if you have questions on that or you feel like you're on the fence, give me a call, shoot me an email, and let's get into your specific situation and see what it looks like. So here's a question. Our website says 15% interest, so on a $100,000 loan, yes, 15% interest only would be $1,250 payments per month, but it said no minimum interest due. Correct, because if you pay us off in one day, that doesn't mean you have a full month of interest due. We would then break that down, based on 360 days, and whatever that amount is, then that would be what is due. I guess really, if you paid us off the same day, then maybe there wouldn't be any interest due. But I think what that refers to, no minimum interest due, means there's no minimum of 6 months of payments or 4 months of payments or something like that. So if you paid us off in 2 months, there's not a requirement of at least 6 months. That's what that's referring to. So how long should a flip take? Uh, yeah, you're right. As fast as possible. I think 3 months is not too long. Every deal is going to be different. Some deals, with legitimately $10,000 in repairs can go extremely fast. The $24,000, if I actually knew what I was doing and had a good crew that was capable, that maybe was only a 30-day flip. I'm just paint, carpet, new kitchen, new bath, nothing crazy. Could have been done in a month, the repairs, and then potentially, if I priced it right, maybe 30 days sitting on the market. So now we're at 2 months. And then once it goes on under contract after 30 days, then maybe another 30, 45 days for my buyer to get their loan and close it out. So that would be 3 months total. If you're doing a $60,000 budget, yeah, maybe that takes a couple months just in repairs. So um, most hard money lenders, it seems, have their loans about 6 months. Ours is 9 months. And I think 6 months is probably pretty reasonable. Ours is kind of has a built-in extension to account for some oopses and unknowns and contract falling out. There's no changes or extension fees or anything. At least not at the 9 months. But yeah, if you can do a flip in 3 months, I think that would be awesome. So we do transactional funding? Typically not, but if you have a deal that requires it, give us a call, shoot me an email, and let's talk about your specific deal and is there a different way to be structuring it if you're not under contract yet. Maybe there's a different way to structure your offer and your deals to where you don't even need transactional funding or flash cash. But if you do need something, there might be a way that we can work it out. It's not kind of in our wheelhouse, but we certainly have done it before. So what about Cleveland? Nope. Colorado, Minnesota only right now. All right, folks, I think I made it through all of them. If I did miss any questions, I apologize. I got a really small window of questions here, and I was scanning through a lot of questions. If I miss anything, give me a call, shoot me an email. I put this together to help other people not make the mistakes I did. And really, when it comes to my lending or just in general, I want to make sure people don't make the same mistakes I do. So give me a call. If there's anything I can do to help, feel free and reach out. I'd love to chat with you and get to know you and see what you're doing in your business and get your take on the market. So thank you all for coming out. Have a great night, and it's the holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.